President Paul Kagame declares he will run for fourth term in next year's presidential election after 23 years in power.
Good morning. Another highlight that we did not mention. Bayern Munich beat Manchester United 4-3 in the UEFA Champions League matches played yesterday. Meanwhile, Arsenal thumped PSV Eindhoven 4-0 in another fixture of the UEFA Champions League. Good morning. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling fine.
Okay.
If it was, I watched the game. If it was 4-1, it would have been good. But then there is a return leg. Let us focus on the future.
4-3, 4-0. That was the score.
Good morning, Kenya. Good morning, people. I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyaringita. This particular morning, we'll be having quite an interesting conversation, Fred, pertaining matters World Suicide Prevention. This particular month is World Suicide Prevention, and the whole awareness to it, just basically taking a look at the numbers and also the people, getting the voice from the people also. So that is the conversation this morning, Fred.
Yes, and following that conversation, the question we are asking this morning is stigma around mental health issues to blame for the rise in cases of suicide in Kenya? Is stigma around mental health issues to blame for the rise in cases of suicide in Kenya? You can interact with us and with that question on our social media pages at TV47 News on X and TV47 Kenya on Facebook. My name is Freddie Ndemuli. This is Morning Cafe. Good morning. Let's now take a look at the top story this morning. And on our top story today, more than 3.5 million candidates will sit for national examinations this year, including the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KPSEA, the Kenya Certificate of Primary Education, KCPE, and the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, KCSE. This is the highest number of candidates ever registered in the country. More on this comes as the Ministry of Education is revising the grading system to focus on learners' competencies, skills, and knowledge. This year's candidates will be the first cohort to benefit from the new grading system, in line with recommendations made by the Presidential Working Party on Education Reforms, PWPER. Now, the new grading will benefit at least 5 cohorts under the defunct 844 system.
All right, and today's diary, what to definitely expect in the Senate committees. The Senate Committee on Health is rather today received submissions on the petition by Kenyatta University Students Association on the management and use of KU-TTRH by KU medical students. And away from that, the Senate Ad Hoc Committee that's pushing for compensation to the Kenyan victims of the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing is scheduled to meet with the Cabinet Secretary for Labor and Social Protection, that is Florence Bore, to deliberate on the inclusion of the survivors in the social assistance programs that is pertaining matters the compensation of the 1998 U.S. bombing. And away from that, into matters Kenya's telecommunication infrastructure, the Senate Committee on ICT is slated to meet with the Cabinet Secretary for ICT and Digital Economy, that is Eli Dualo, and CEO of ATC Kenya today to deliberate on telecommunication infrastructure and the dispute between American Tower Corporation, that is ATC Kenya, and Telcom Kenya. And in matters the corridors of justice, former Kiambu Governor, that is Ferdinand Waititu, and 12 others are expected to present themselves in the Milimani Anti-Corruption Court. They are charged with a conflict of interest, abuse of office, and dealing with suspect property. And this particular week is the International Deaf Awareness Week. And, well, basically this entire month, actually, Deaf Awareness Month. And this week, these particular programs continue with a number of events planned across the country. This year's theme, by the way, is a world where deaf people everywhere can sign anywhere. And just to remind you also, in Today in History, in 2013, a day like today, masked gunmen attacked the upscale Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya, taking hostages and killing at least 67 people. Almost 200 people, including at least 5 US citizens, were wounded in the siege, which lasted for days. That is on Today in History, and there you have it for today. We'll be updating this particular diary as we move on for the news diary, and also the county diary, and also international diary at around 9 a.m. This particular morning. But Fred, today's dailies matters politics here, yes, and also the whole Westgate on Business Daily.
Quite a lot of politics on the front pages this morning. We kick off with the Standard. No longer at ease. That's a big headline imprinted on a green background. All is not well in President Ruto's inner sanctums, and it is exploding into the open fast. First, it was UDA Secretary General Malala taking up the battle to collapse Kenya Kwanza affiliate parties, and now Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Trade CS Moses Kuria have opened a can of worms with their war of words triggering resignation calls for the former Gatundu MP. Interesting turn of events there. No longer at ease, the war within. That's a big headline there. And we have quotes from various people, including David D, Boni Khalwale, the majority whip, Cleophas Malala, UDA boss, and Moses Kuria, the trade CS, including the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua himself. The main stories on pages 4 and 5 of the Standard this morning. Other stories making it to the front page. Special report on the cost of living, borrow leave from Kibaki, Uhuru's playbook, President told. The stories on pages 6 and 7. And I don't know how the President or Kenya Kwanza will take that suggestion that they should borrow leave from Uhuru's playbook. Interesting. In national news, I was headhunted to marry governor's son, claims woman. Story on page 3. On the top strip of the Standard this morning, cheap ugali, they ask, not so soon. Maize farmers won. The story is on page 10 of the Standard. On the international scene, Kagame to run for a 4th term. That's on page 22. And in sport, Champions League thrills and upsets. The story is on page 40. And yes, it gives results there, but doesn't really capture the highlights, which I had mentioned earlier. And that was Bayern Munich thumping Manchester United 4-3.
Basically,
and really, Arsenal, the great Arsenal, beating PSV Eindhoven.
You're basically expecting to, you know.
And I think we should move on to the next paper. My director cannot allow me to continue with that, but hey, scores are scores. I'm not the one who played the games. I wasn't the referee. Well, the scores still do stand.
That is on the Standard this
That's
morning.
The Standard this morning.
All right. On Daily Nation, trouble in paradise. And they ask who will blink first. So an online exchange between Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria is the latest in a series of rounds that expose a simmering power struggle and the soft underbelly of President William Ruto's ruling Kenya Kwanza administration. You can take a look at that on page 4. And also goes on to say matters housekeeping. Ruto has called a meeting of UDA elected nominated leaders next week. Well, from that on the bottom strip, since 2013, 10 years on, the Westgate attack, terror strike that changed our lives. So they briefly tell you here's how things changed. Number 1, phone tapping on matters how laws passed allowing security agencies to listen in and record phone conversations without court permission, matters SIM registration, matters surveillance, and also matters private security. On the left strip, the head of state, his visit in United States of America, and the number of handshakes he's having there. That is the UN summit. Ruto loaded for Haiti peacekeeping mission, and they're having a quote there by US President Joe Biden. How he said, I thank President William Ruto for his willingness to serve as lead nation of a UN-backed security mission. I call on the Security Council to authorize the mission now, since the people cannot wait any longer. And in matters health, painkiller for children recalled by a regulator. That was among our highlights this morning. Pharmacy Board says a locally manufactured oral drug that is used to relieve pain and help bring down fever in children failed to meet the prescribed market authorization requirements. More on page 2. And in matters education, still on the left strip, record 3.5 million to sit national exams this year. So candidates will sit the Kenya Primary School Education Assessment, KEPSEA, KCSE and KCPE education. That is on the back page. In a minute, we'll be taking a look at that. But before that, on the top strip, on matters sports here. Not so fast, Mora. Will you marry me? Okay. While 800-meter champion Mary Mora had no idea that what awaited her at the JKIA, that is Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, as the rest of the passengers disembarked from the plane on Tuesday night. The team of Kenyan athletes was asked to remain behind. They were puzzled but obeyed the instruction. And as they alighted, Mora was confronted with the surprise of her life. That is on page 36. The gentleman setting the standards quite high for the rest of us.
Mapema ndio best. Ukichelewa utakuta mwana si wako.
Right.
The sooner you do it, the better.
The sooner, okay. I feel like you're talking to me directly.
Well, why do you feel targeted, Stanley?
But with tutapange maneno. Well, speak of, planning things, on the back page of Daily Nation, and also forms our big story this morning, matters record-breaking. This is the highest number of candidates ever registered in the country. Over 3.5 million learners to sit national exams this year. So at a glance, Fred, Ministry mulls new grading system. So this year's candidates will be the first cohort to benefit from the new grading system in line with recommendations made by the Presidential Working Party. So Dr. Kipsang said the Presidential Working Party recommended separating placement from testing to gauge what children have learned. The new grading will benefit at least 5 cohorts under the defunct 844 system, and it will enable learners to pursue their dream courses, the PS also said. That is on the Daily Nation this morning.
Let's move on now to the People Daily. And on the People Daily, the big headline there, Kenya remembers. What happened here? Yes, Kenya remembers Westgate recollections. It is now 10 years since that ugly hand of terrorism left a scar that Kenya is yet to heal from. Today we unite to reflect on those who died and to celebrate the gallant men and women who stood up to defend their fellow citizens and those that remain vigilant every day to ensure that such acts do not happen again. The main story is on page 4 and some photos of back then on that 21st day of September 2013, where 4 gunmen attacked that mall in Westlands. A lot has changed since then in 10 years, but these are photos from back then, and that's what is on the front page of the People Daily. The other stories featured on the front page of the People Daily this morning: fireworks as Mugenda VC clash in battle for hospital. Kenyatta University Teaching, Research and Referral Hospital Chair, Professor Olive Mugenda, responds to questions from members of the Public Investments Committee over the controversy surrounding ownership of the medical facility.
And actually that goes on also today.
Yes.
So we'll be following up on how things will be shaping up for that.
Okay. On the very top strip of the People Daily this morning, Ruto dalliance with US unpacked. The story is on page 6. President's attempts to preserve peace and alleviate human suffering globally wins him accolades from top world leaders, likely to position him as a key man on African continent. I think this is an analysis inside the People Daily this morning. But the main story on the front page of the People Daily, Kenya remembers.
And Business Daily also goes with a similar bit of that. How Kenya's security spending spying changed after Westgate. So NIS allocation has more than tripled to 44.3 billion Kenyan shillings, and corporate demand drives private security industry growth. So they have that on page 2, if you definitely want to take a look at that. And even as we are serving you hot kahawa this morning, however you like it, on the bottom strip of Business Daily, they tell you that coffee prices dip, layoffs loom amid Gachagua reforms. And on the ticker that is on the right side of Business Daily, Pharmacy Board recalls children fever drug over safety concerns. Family Bank to sell 800 million shares in issue, and property developer to issue 3 billion shillings Sukuk bond. And on the top page there, Matters Intelligence, I believe this is an opinion placed by Bitanga Ndemo, ambassador. Some startups need to pay more attention to the significance of a robust business model and a well thought out plan. More on page 9. That is on Business Daily. And concerning on the back page also, Matters Energy here. It's time for Africa to fully tap its green energy potential on the Business Daily.
Haya, tuangazie masuala kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo Alhamisi ya leo. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, wasi ngome ya Ruto. Wanasiasa washirika wa rais eneo la Rift Valley wana wakati mgumu kutuliza raia wanaolalamika bei za bidhaa. Mfumo wa bei za bidhaa za msingi na kupanda kwa bei ya mafuta ya petroli kumesababisha mgawanyiko mkubwa kati ya viongozi wa kisiasa wanaomuunga Rais William Ruto na wakazi wa eneo la Rift Valley ambayo ni ngome ya rais. Wengi wanalalama hawawezi kumudu bei ya bidhaa na kupanda kwa gharama ya maisha kwa ujumla. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa Taifa Leo. Hiyo ndio habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Habari nyingine ambazo zimepewa kipaumbele pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, watu wazima wajisajili kwa KCPE ya mwisho. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Kwingineko, hofu North Rift kuhusu El Nino. Maeneo mengi ya kaskazini mwa bonde la Ufa yamekuwa yakikabiliwa na maporomoko ya ardhi hasa wakati wa mafuriko. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 4. Kwenye habari za kimataifa, Kagame kutetea kiti cha urais tena. Kiongozi huyo wa Rwanda aliyeingia mamlakani mwaka wa 2000 asema atawania tena mwaka ujao. Ukurasa wa 8 ndiko kunako habari kamili. Pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Arati amfokea Gachagua kuhusu ulinzi. Asema ni haki ya magavana kupewa ulinzi kwa gharama ya walipa ushuru. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Na kwenye spoti, Pep ahofia majeraha ya nyota wake. Akiri wachezaji 5 waliojeruhiwa wataharibu mambo kwa kikosi chake. Masuala ya spoti pale ukurasa wa 20 kwenye Taifa Leo.
All right, I also have the Star here. And the Star just paints a picture of how much the president and his deputy have been using on matters traveling alone for the past 9 months. So they say Ruto and Rigathi spent 1.4 billion Kenyan shillings on travel in 9 months. President said he inherited an economy in shambles. Fixing it will be painful. And they spare page 4 and also page 5 for that story. Yesterday we were having a story by the First Lady while traveling to call for a whole prayer function back in Kenya with a whole delegation of about 10 people. Interesting times, and asking austerity for who? And also, the Star is asking the same austerity President, DP and Musalia offices biggest spenders. Well, from that, on the left side of the Star, the headlines making it here, Kenyan serial killer stabbed to death in US jail. That is on page 2. And matters low, breached KU hospital, referral facility is run by a nurse. MPs are questioning how Kenyatta University Hospital, a national referral and research facility, is run by a nurse instead of a medical doctor as required. In a stormy Wednesday afternoon session, lawmakers put to task KUTT RH board chairperson Prof. Olive Mugende over what they termed a blatant breach of the law. And also there matters voices, Kenya in full accountability mode. And finally, on the top strip, the same the highlight that I was talking about, First Lady invites Benny Hinn, the pastor, for state-sponsored crusade in Kenya. You can take a look at that on page 3. So from page 3, 4, and 5, you can read Kenya's austerity measures and how I love how honest Benny Hinn was really, by the way. Standing in front of a huge crowd and actually, telling us what actually happened. Oh yes,
he is a man of God, if I may call it that.
But then, in the spirit of being truthful, we can continue.
Okay. Speaking of austerity measures, similar sentiments in Uganda. And in Uganda, the Daily Monitor's main story on the front page, government sends team of 70 to UN meet. Uncoordinated movement of troops, despite President Museveni designating Ms. Jessica Alupo to represent him and the country at the 78th United Nations General Assembly, which is underway in New York. The Prime Minister, Robina Nabanja, surfaces with another delegation, pushing up the number of officials listed to represent Uganda to 71, and sparking confusion and diplomatic headache for hosts. The main story is on pages 4 and 5 of the Daily Monitor. So, yes, matters austerity and delegations, foreign delegations, making headlines both in Kenya and Uganda. Interesting. Other stories on the front page of the Daily Monitor. In Uganda, government to privatize Soroti fruit factory. And on the top strip, downpour exposes Kampala's bare roads. Elsewhere, UNEP to hire 60,000 exam invigilators. That's what's headlining in Uganda this morning.
Let's cross over to Tanzania, and I do have the Citizen here with me, and the Citizen says clock ticking on Tanzania's coal business. They also mention a particular number here, $220 million. Recent data from the Bank of Tanzania, that is BOT, shows that the country's coal exports increased to $220.7 million in the year to July 2023 from $67.3 million on a year earlier. For the Tanzanian minerals market, these climate interventions come at a high economic cost. The highlights making it to the Citizen. At the bottom strip, Samia assures investors as $311 million float glass factory commissioned. And the bottom scroll there, government experts chart out sustainable pathway to electricity. On the bottom, rather top strip, matters national judgment. Ex-MP kisses battle over 4 billion shillings. I believe that's Tanzanian shillings estate. And national honor, CRDB named best Islamic bank in East Africa. Yes, that is on the Citizen this morning.
Tuangalie gazeti la Mwananchi. Kwenye Mwananchi kule Tanzania, maumivu mgao wa umeme ya tikisa. Wananchi walalama shughuli za uzalishaji mali kukwama, viwanda vinyozi waathirika, Biteko watoa agizo, TANESCO hakuna kulala. Habari kuu pale kwenye ukurasa wa mbele Mwananchi, maumivu mgao wa umeme ya tikisa. Habari zingine kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi, watoto wanavyolawitiwa ufukweni, wazazi waonywa. Kwingineko, historia Tanzania, Samia akizindua kiwanda cha kioo. Na Viki Kamata akwa kisiki, si mke halali kusimamia. Okay. Habari zingine, mambo manne kuteka mjadala Chadema wakijifungia saa 48 siasa za Tanzania kule. Bado kwenye vidokezo kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, ofisa wa polisi aliyejichimbia kaburi sasa anunua jeneza la shilingi milioni 3. Lakini milioni 3 za Tanzania, zingatia. Na hizo ndizo habari kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Mwananchi kule Tanzania. Turejee nyumbani tuangalie masuala ya karakacha asubuhi ya leo.
I'm curious if he's already bought a jeneza.
3 million shillings in Kenyan money should be a few 100,000 shillings, or probably not even 100,000 shillings.
So probably he's buying now the clothes next.
If you've dug your own grave, then surely you should even hire the pastor to preside over. 3 million shillings, yes.
3 million shillings. We'll definitely find out how much is that.
111,000. Well, he has good plans for his exit from this place.
Just making sure everything is good and sorted out. But then now on page 14 of the Standard, still a caricature there of a gentleman looking like Ezra Chiloba, saying now from IBC, I am fired up, and carrying a sack, written sacking benefits. Then moving to CA, Communications Authority of Kenya, having a note there suspended. And then what we were talking about yesterday, by the way, there's a red seat there, written New Post. It hasn't yet been confirmed which one, but he's saying, I will be back.
Mm-hmm. He's acting like those football coaches who, because of their contracts that guarantee them a very hefty compensation once they're fired, I think he's benefiting a lot more. If he's fired, once he was fired from the IEBC, he got benefits for that. He's now almost leaving the Communications Authority, and probably he'll get something from it. And just as well, he could land another post, Ezra Chiloba.
But he's playing his, he has his cards close to his chest.
Oh, yeah.
And speaking of cards,
I tell you, the cartoon on page 17 of the Daily Nation, I think, is more interesting. Baba the Sixth. And a game of cards there. Someone holding a lot of cards behind their back with that big R badge on the arm of his trademark uniform. And everyone else is trying to play their cards, but someone is hiding his. Baba the Sixth, the question is being asked. And this points to the suggestion that the Azimio leader, Raila Odinga, could just offer himself for election once again for president come 2027. Well, questions on whether or not he is still young enough to run for president are emerging now, 4 years before the 2027 election, and that's a cartoon on page 17 of the Daily Nation. Let's get the cartoon on the People Daily this morning. It's usually on page 10. And on page 10, the cartoon there with a sign pointing towards Ruiru, the direction of Ruiru. And very many people are carrying their luggage there, being directed by a shepherd that looks very much like some CS we know. And he says, I will show you the land of milk and honey.
I think the other hand should be probably carrying maybe a tablet, like Moses and the Ten Commandments.
The Ten Commandments.
Yes.
And someone says, yes, Moses is leading us to the promised land.
Oh, yes.
The promised land is Ruiru this time. Interesting. I think this is my favorite cartoon today. This one beats all of them. Yes. Okay. I will show you the land of milk and honey.
And
yes, Moses,
milk, honey, and oil.
Lead us to the land. And maswala karakacha ndiyo hayo.
Today I actually have a cartoon by Business Daily, Matters Business here. It's on the page 11. Definitely show you there, even a machine basically. Yeah.
Automated responses.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Interesting, the cartoons, but I think for me the cartoon on page 10 of the People Daily wins it today. Remember the question we're asking today, and this is tied to the conversation that Stanley will be having as from 8 a.m. And today we ask, is a stigma around mental health issues to blame for the rise in cases of suicide? You can continue sharing your feedback with us on the social media pages available on your screen, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, TV47 Kenya on Instagram as well. and on X, TV47 News. Yes, I think that needs to be corrected. It's TV47 News on X.
Thanks, yes.
After the break, if you haven't seen the poster, after the break, we'll have lawyer Ndegwa Njiru on our panel today discussing the state of the nation. Honorable Peter Salasia, MP Mumias East, and the Honorable Senator Karen Nyamu. Do stand by for that. You don't want to miss this conversation happening right here on TV47. This is Morning Cafe.
Good morning.
East will be joining us. So we want to discuss state of the nation this morning. Yeah. A lot has been happening in the country. Matters economy, fuel prices, cost of living, as well as the skyrocketing, or rather the crisis of youth unemployment. And we'll be discussing all this, plus the politics around it, with my panelists this morning. So let's start off probably with the youth crisis. And I'm sure you all saw that video and images doing rounds online about thousands of young Kenyans who turned up for military recruitment at Embakasi Garrison. And they're estimated to have been around between 7,000 to 10,000 people, all angling for about 350 jobs only. And it speaks to the crisis of youth unemployment in Kenya today. And this on the back of so many promises to the youth from our leadership, from both sides of the political divide, that we will do this for you, we will do this for you. And none of the promises has come to pass. Senator, as a young Kenyan yourself, what did that video make you feel?
Well, in Ndimuli, it is out there that we have a high rate of unemployment in the country. Every other year, we are churning out graduates from the universities, from the colleges, from the tertiary institutions, around 400,000 a year. And that have been inculcated that they're being prepared for a job market, for employment. But the work of the government is to create an enabling environment so that these young people can involve themselves in gainful activities, not necessarily getting employed in jobs. And that's why we have seen the government going out to set up these industrial parks. They're creating a digital space where young people can employ themselves, can get into the digital market and make a lot of money. There are a lot of opportunities there. We have had testimonials of people who are making millions online. And so the government is putting an enabling environment and also engaging in civic education, whereby youth are sensitized on these opportunities so that they can be able to take advantage and make money. But in Ndimuli, I admit it is a dire situation. It needs to be arrested, and the government is doing what it can. It may not be, the solution may not be government employing people, but creating an environment where investors come to the country, create employment, and other factors that spur the growth of jobs. Well,
coupled with a high cost of living,
yes,
people who are the majority in this country are facing a double trouble.
Yes.
And we're talking about a huge population, because according to the Kenya Youth Survey report of 2016 by the East African Institute, this population of people between the ages of 18 and 35 make up about 80% of Kenya's population.
Exactly.
And out of that, more than 55% are unemployed. It is not a problem unique to this administration.
No.
Youth unemployment has been a problem that has been there for a long time. It is, our question today is, the kind of promises made every election cycle by politicians, be it Kenya Kwanza, be it Jubilee, be it PNU, whichever administration comes in, always promises to sort out the issues for the youth. How come this is not happening?
Yeah, thank you, friend. It has, the youth has always been focused and looked at the problem in this country, not as a resource that can be harnessed for purposes of initiating growth in our economy. Number two, we have refused to create meaningful avenues that can absorb these youths. For example, the youth only believes that you only need a white-collar job, and that the best person who can grant the first opportunity is government. That is when there are 350 positions announced, you get a turn-up of 7,000 people coming for those particular positions. But the unfortunate thing is that the youths are not angry enough. They should have marched from the garrison to the persons who promised to give them jobs, so that they can then speak in a language that these individuals can understand. It is the responsibility of government, whichever government, to put into place the necessary infrastructures that will spike the economy, and the economy will eventually absorb and create the job markets for these people. For example, the government is not even one of the biggest employer. The biggest employer is a public service. Sorry, a private service. But the private service is also going down because one of the cost of living, the cost of production, the cost of setup, and corruption. For example, in this country, as where we are today, if an investor wants to invest in Kenya, you must be very careful. Why? Because we are dealing with a government that is not very promising that it can uphold private rights. And remember the question of private rights. Yes, I will explain. Remember the question of right to ownership of property is one of the tenets of democracy. But if a private investor, a foreign investor, or even a local investor feels that his properties will not be protected by the state, because the state is the one that has a monopoly of protecting the people's property, your property will be invaded, people will go and collar your mbuzi, courtesy of the state, individuals will be abducted. The next day, the person who is the head of the state will say, go and withdraw those cases, so that then we can be able to deal. You see, when the head of state goes and says, we withdraw this case, case is iendele, and that case is involving a question of the investment. What will happen is this, What will happen is this, that any person who might want to come and invest will not have confidence that in the event of a dispute arising, that dispute will be solved in the rightful manner, because he will be apprehensive that that dispute will be interfered with by the power that be. So what happens is, instead of me going to risk to a situation whereby if the deal goes sour, nobody will be able to adjudicate over that matter, they're going to fold their hands.
Okay, granted, and I'm sure the senator will want to respond,
yes,
or to challenge some of your assertions. But Senator, even as you do that, granted, the government has come out strongly and indicated its preference for vocational training and what we call TVETs, simply because the argument is that this ones will enable the younger people to be prepared for the market with skills that are probably necessary or required in this market. But looking at the kind of group that showed up for this military recruitment, these are people who went to the NYS. In fact, it was said that these are fresh graduates, fresh NYS graduates.
Fully trained.
That program at the NYS is one of the most rigorous, and they take people through plumbing, woodwork, metalwork, mechanical engineering to some level. Those are the same kind of courses that are offered in TVET institutions. How come we're seeing desperation, that kind of desperation, in a group that has gone through what this government believes would be the solution?
Ndimuli, even before we get to that, it is very unfortunate that my colleagues in the practice, the advocate Ndegwa, would sit here in national TV and say that the president has ordered for cases to be to stop prosecution.
Yes, he did.
Let's allow her to challenge that point. We'll come back.
The president himself?
Yes, he did.
And then
individuals were threatened.
Okay, let's allow her to finish.
All right.
And then he talks about investors not being assured of protection of their property because of what was happening as a counter effect of the Mandamano. What happened in...
not Mandamano. I was addressing the Mumia case.
All right. I think for this conversation to continue, let's just allow each other time to execute. Then
I'm well guided.
Because you referred to the former president's home that was apparently raided, and you said the government facilitated that. I mean, when we are here, we have people watching us, and what you're saying can be taken as factual. So let's be responsible in our statements. To your question on how we are seeing desperation, even though that the young people have undergone the training, the rigorous training in NYS, we have just taken power. The government that is focusing on the TVET and the manual training has just taken power. And we have just seen the programs are just being implemented to absorb them and to create these industrial parks where they will be, their skills would be useful. So for a long time, this has not been a conversation. For a long time, this has not been the practice. So we are seeing a new initiative to train, a new vigor to train these youth and young people with physical skills, and also creating the opportunities to observe the same. So as of now, we may not have all this, but what is the government doing? What is in the pipeline? That is what we should be looking at. And we have hope. It is our problem as a country. It is not the problem of the Kenya Kwanza government. It is our issue. The rate of unemployment is a Kenyan issue. And so it is not time for blame game. It is not time for pointing fingers. It is time to collectively tackle this situation. And let's all be solutions, not just blame games.
And Wakili Ndegwa,
yes.
Because I want us to focus more on the solutions. I know sometimes we tend to criticize the government consistently, yes, and they should be criticized.
Yes.
But when it comes to the issue of youth, we're more interested in the way forward and the solutions that we may find. Senator, who's also a lawyer, is talking about the hope that exists from her end. But that hope was not being seen in that group of youth that turned there. Their hope was that they would secure 350,000, 350 jobs, which was totally misplaced. How come, even with the kind of training they have, they seem not to have hope of a clear future? That the only thing they see is that once I go through NYS, then the only progression I should get is a job at the military.
I first said, Fred, that the kind of the education system that we have, it's also partly to blame. And that is the reason why we had to revolutionize our curriculum so that we start getting individuals who can have the ability to solve a problem. For example, there are some schools, and I've been trying to look at their curriculum, some international schools here. I will not mention them because they have not paid for advertisement. I was going around and seeing some of these curriculum, and they're giving the Cambridge system. One of the schools had this culture of people being trained on how to solve a problem. So when you approach the teacher with a problem of whatever that nature it may be, you're not going to say, teacher, this has happened. You're going to tell the teacher, you know, we can do this about this. So we have that problem in our education system, and we are hoping that the CBC system will be able to at least change the way we think and we view things. But again, Fred, we must be able to look at where the cracks of the matters are. There are no successful governments that have been keen in sorting out this problem. Because we are not simply saying that government should be the only person to absorb these individuals. We are saying government must create an enabling environment. Because if there is no enabling environment for the public, in the public sector, there is no enabling environment in the private sector. How will jobs be created? For example, that youth who has been trained from NYS and is qualified in plumbing, if the construction industry is slowed, it means then you cannot absorb that child, that person. You cannot absorb that youth. If the motor vehicle industry is slowed, then it means you cannot also absorb that person. Number two, we must also think beyond our boundaries. How are we able to export this labor? But instead of us having that conversation, what we are having is sideshows. I've heard her mention about the question of the creation of the industrial parks. When you ask yourself the strategy, the impact, and the end results of this industrial park, I don't see any light at the end of the day. For example, they came to Kirinyaga and created an industrial park. Kirinyaga is predominantly an agricultural county. They went to Njiru, 5 kilometers away from Kirinyaga. They created another industrial park. Njiru is predominantly an agricultural county. They went to Laikipia, about 20 kilometers away. They created another industrial park. So all these industrial parks, they are homogeneous in nature, in the sense they are dealing with one particular product. But we need to ask ourselves, how can we expand manufacturing? Because if we do not expand manufacturing, and we're not saying that government should expand manufacturing, government should create enabling environment to expand manufacturing. There's nothing that is happening. Number two, I do not expect that the minister for the CS for industrialization is the one who is going to set up those industries. I expect that there shall be created a proper environment that will invite investors to come and create investment in those particular industrial parks. But when you look at the way government is dealing, friend, even if I want to be objective and to be optimistic, how will an investor come when fuel, a liter of fuel is at 200, a liter of diesel is at 200 in Kenya, and across the border, a liter of the same fuel is 190. Mm-hmm. So the environment is not enticing, is not inviting, is not healthy.
Okay. And Senator, a lot of criticism has been directed your way as younger leaders, especially in both houses of the Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate, that even those people we thought were younger leaders and we sent them to the houses of Parliament, ideally, yes, to represent the whole nation, but also speak for the youth. They're not doing as much. That young politicians, younger elected leaders or nominated have been absorbed into the old way of thinking, such that they do not see their fellow youth as being a constituent that needs protection, hence offering no remedies to the situation that we currently face. Do you agree with that assessment?
Indimuli, I can only speak of myself and the efforts that I have presented before the House. Currently, I have a motion that is live on Senate that seeks to cushion the common mwananchi, the harsh economic times, and the inflation and the cost of living that has become so tough for Kenyans. Because I had proposed an increment of a 50% increment of the minimum wage. That was before May, when the president increased it from minimum wage from 15,000 to about 17,000. But I'm still proposing that the minimum wage should be 22,000. Because let's face it, the workers are the ones who play the biggest role in the growth of the economy. They're the biggest spenders, and they're increasing their purchase power has a direct effect to the economy. Mm-hmm. And we'll see how that goes in the debate. I'm hoping it will be successful. I have also taken the Treasury, the National Treasury, at task to give us numbers of the AGPO. The AGPO program that was put forward to benefit young people, women, and people living with disability. I have put the National Treasury before the floor of the House to know the numbers, how many people, how many young people, how many women, how many PWDs are registered under the AGPO program? How many of them have been successful in tendering? How is the government protecting these young people from unscrupulous business people who use them for registration purposes? And the young people do not know what that enterprise entails, and all the profits go to the unscrupulous business people. So you're just used for the registration purposes of that company. How does the government ensure that that young person is benefiting from this enterprise, that their name appears? And every time tax returns are filed, it shows that they are having an income and they are filing returns. I've also put them a task to give us, on the floor of the House, in the Senate, to table a report and tell us what level of implementation are the 47 counties. How far have they gone with the AGPO? What is the success story of AGPO at all 47 counties? Something else, I have a bill in the House on digital literacy. Because the young people are the most digital literate right now. And the world is going digital. And so what is the government doing to make sure that more and more young people have this equipment, have this basic digital skills? And the objective of that digital literacy bill is to ensure that the workforce existing civil servants and future employees of the government have a minimal digital literacy level and internationally recognized certification. Like in Rwanda, they use the ICDL for all civil servants. Also, my bill proposes that the curriculum involves digital training right from primary school and high school. And it also gives a framework for the government to take advantage and to make sure that the 80% of Kenyan population is digitally literate as per the plan, the national plan for digital literacy. So in the morning, let's go individual by individual, because I know the efforts that I'm doing directed
At what level are these bills in terms of debate in the House? This
bill has just been approved by the Speaker. It is going for publication as we speak. Mm-hmm. And I'm working with the Ministry of ICT. We have exchanged notes because there is also what they aim, they also have their aims that they would like to channel through my bill. Okay. Because the government is digitalizing its services to 100%. We are at maybe 50% because over 5,000 government services are now online, and you cannot have all these services online when our people do not have the skills, when our young people do not have the skills. And also the bill proposes we have young cohorts going to community levels, equipping the community with digital skills, and these people will be youth. It's akin to the kazi mtaani, or the community health workers, how they go to the ground and ensure that the people have digital skills. And this is creating employment as well.
Okay, interesting. And after the break, we'll be moving forward to looking now at the overall state of the economy, the prevailing state of the economy and the fuel prices that Wakili had mentioned earlier. So you can continue engaging with us on our social media pages, TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and Instagram. And we're still in studio with Senator Nyamu and Wakili Ndegwa Njiru. Do stand by for that conversation. After the break, you're watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Ndimbuli. Before we continue our discussion this morning, a quick reminder of the question we're asking this morning, and it's linked to a conversation that will be coming to your way later on in an hour's time. And today we are asking, is the stigma around mental health issues to blame for the rise in cases of suicide? Is stigma around mental health issues to blame for the rise in cases of suicide? You can continue interacting with that question on TV47 News, that's on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and Instagram. And we'll be sampling some of your views as we continue with this broadcast. I'm still in studio with Senator Nyamu and Wakili Ndegwa Njiru. We've been talking about youth unemployment for the first part of this show. We now want to move to issues around the economy, high cost of living, and of course, high fuel prices. And let me start with you, Senator, because there's a tweet here on your X handle. So I can say this is a post on X. X, formerly Twitter.
Okay,
No,
okay.
And you say Ndimuli is very specific.
I'm not talking about anyone's ex. But fuel prices have hit historic highs around the world. Yes, this is bad for the cost of living, and it is a bad sign for the economy. But you can be sure there's a person hit heaviest by this setback. It's the head of state, who's been doing everything to get us out of the woods. And it's attracted quite some feedback, over 500 comments, retweeted over or reposted over 128 times. But kindly expound on that, because our understanding is that the president himself pushed for the increased taxation on fuel prices. It is a matter of fact that in June this year, VAT on fuel products, on petroleum products, was at 8%. In his proposal through the finance bill that now is an act, that moved to 16%. Now we saw the proposal by Treasury to up VAT to 18%. That has a direct impact on the price of petroleum. VAT is determined locally, so we cannot say it is up to global forces. So when you say the president is hardest hit, many people ask questions.
Ndimuli, don't try to confuse me, because when this latest increase of fuel that has happened, that was announced by EPRA on 14th, 15th
Yes.
of this month, is a routinely price set of fuel that happens every month on the 15th or 15th to give the prices for that cycle. So when the levies and when the VAT and all this was happening in June, that was a different cycle. So this increment has nothing to do with that tax or whatever happened on the taxation. So, but this latest increment of this cycle, and this Kenyans need to understand that this increment, the latest one, affects us up to October. After October, it could go lower, because Ndimuli, I'm sure you know that this is a cycle. This is a cycle. Every month, EPRA announces new fuel prices. Mm-hmm. So this particular one, we know that the Russian oil, being one of the biggest supply in the world, has been hit by sanctions because of their war with Ukraine. It is knowledge out there. Everyone knows that. And so it has affected the prices globally. So that is what I was stating. And also, at this time, this cycle, there is high demand of fuel, of kerosene and petrol, because in the northern hemisphere, they're going to winter. And so there's a lot of demand for fuel because of the heating during winter system. So this has also contributed to the spiking of the prices. And to that extent, it is beyond the government's control. And you cannot start saying that now we should drop the taxes because of one cycle. What I meant by the government, the president is most hit. I meant that it is very frustrating as a head of state. You're doing everything. We can see the president all over the world trying to negotiate and broker deals that benefit the Kenyans and that grows our economy. And so this price hike is frustrating for him, mm-hmm. because on this side he's making progress, and on the other side, the global fuel prices that affect us in every other single way.
But Senator, allow me to challenge you on that, because the amount of taxation on petroleum products in Kenya, it means that on a litre of petroleum that we now pay for about 211 shillings, more than 79 shillings actually goes to government in the form of taxation. VAT is part of that, as well as other excess duty. That is definitely within the purview of the current administration, which has those tax policies. It has nothing to do with the global situation. I
am addressing this price hike because this increment of 13 shillings has happened this month.
But it's been going up progressively. Yes, there was 13 shillings.
The government has to collect taxes. Mm-hmm. We have to collect the government has to collect taxes, because that's the only way that the government can implement some projects and offer services to the mwananchi.
Okay.
So we cannot argue with tax and the tax regime and what his advisors come up with, but we cannot attribute this latest hike to taxes only.
Okay.
There are other factors that we have to appreciate and that we cannot pretend not to be aware. The last cycle, the previous cycle before this one, the government cushioned consumers with from that fund. There's a levy fund that the media reported it as a subsidy, which is not a subsidy, but they cushioned the pump price for the consumer. But in this cycle, it has not made sense economically to cushion the mwananchi using that fund, because of our declining shilling against the dollar, first of all, and because of these factors that I'm talking about that are global. So it makes no sense to subsidize, and so we have to bear the brunt, and that's why I'm saying the government and the president is most frustrated and most hit, because it's going to be a month of bearing the brunt of what is happening globally, and the option of subsidy and cushioning the mwananchi from the pump prices, as much as the government would love to do that, and they have done it before because they did it in the previous cycle. In this cycle, it did not make sense because the shilling continues to decline against the dollar.
Yet the shilling declining is a common issue across the region. Fuel going to Uganda passes through Kenya. It's a bit cheaper than what we pay for in Kenya. Fuel in Tanzania is also slightly cheaper than in Kenya.
Have you digged to find out how come their fuel is below ours? Are they using subsidies? Because it has also increased. I know that Tanzanian fuel has increased from 2,900 to 3,000, from 2,900 a litre to 3,300 a litre. They have also had increment. So, but do you know if they are being cushioned? Do you know if they are under subsidy, which to us does not make sense? And we cannot be copying what they're doing and digging a hole. We cannot go copying what other countries are doing because we have been there. We have gone the subsidy way. And the government did not see it fit to do it in this cycle.
Wakili, I can see you itching to respond to that. But I'll also pose a question to you as well. Because we see that even the role of the what we would call opposition, the other side of the political divide, in challenging or in discussing these issues, it would appear that that side as well has gone quiet. That the kind of agitation, yesterday I heard one of clerics, a religious leader, saying that we need to push back. It is time for us to push back. We cannot continue just taking it in. Yet that role, we know that the opposition is expected to play it. Civil society, trade unions, everyone appears to have gone quiet.
First of all, Fred, is that the responsibility to raise these issues does not lie with Azimio constitutionally. It lies with the House of Parliament, both the Senate and the National Assembly. Why? Because the Constitution mandates them to create oversight over the executive. That is a shared role between the majority and the minority. So even the persons in the names of Senator Karen Nyamu, who are in Parliament, they have the obligation of oversighting government to make sure that the policies that the government is coming up with are responsive to the plights of mwananchi. For them, it should not just be a praise and worship chorus, saying that the president is going all over the world. Yeah, he has gone all over the world, but what do you have to show for it? That is the work of Senator Karen Nyamu to ask Mr. President, you are in America, what did you bring for my people?
Can I tell you?
That is the work of
the
You'll get
it is not a preserve of Azimio. Number two, when Azimio started agitating under Article 37, the whole process was unconstitutionally criminalized and people were killed. Then we asked ourselves, why should we subject our supporters to government's brutality and the police brutality to the extent that they are losing their lives that we are fighting to preserve? So it made no sense. So these agitations were also met with a counter argument that, you know what, when you guys were putting sufurias on your heads, we were busy farming and we were waiting for bumper harvest.
Are you saying you are you convinced into stopping that agitation?
No. We were not convinced in supporting it. Nobody convinced us. But we just realized we need a change of strategy. Because our silence means that people will see the role which Parliament is not playing out.
Okay.
We were playing out the role of Parliament.
Okay.
So we stepped back strategically.
And Wakili, I'll ask you this because I know we've discussed this on this panel before.
Yes.
The fact that Parliament, the Houses of Parliament appear to be under the capture of the executive.
Yes.
That one is granted, we agree.
Yes, that is why Senator Karen Nyamu cannot...
when you're talking about silence,
No.
silence of the Houses of Parliament, silence by parties which would form an opposition to the
Yes.
current regime, silence by the trade unions, silence by the civil society.
Yes.
Who is a Kenyan to turn to if all this all this structure?
And that is the debate now. That's a good debate. That's a debate we are inviting Kenyans so that they may be informed sufficiently that they need to elect individuals who have the capacity and on the basis of meritocracy. So that then they must realize that the individuals whom they have now elected into parliament are not able to address the challenges that they have. Allow me just to mention one thing. Let's not be told by any person, and I've seen the government trying to spin this, that all these prices have been hiked because of the war in Ukraine, the Russian cargo cannot move because of the trade embargoes. All that does not fall anywhere. It's trying to just whitewash the challenges that Kenyans have. Kenyans do not mind. They do not even understand the trade embargoes. They are saying they don't mind whether the cat is black or white. They only mind whether the cat is able to cut the mice. And this cat is not able to cut the mice.
Okay, Senator.
Parliament is not silent. It is not true that Parliament is silent. We have seen the Energy Committee for the National Assembly the other day invite the CS for Energy, CS Chirchir, and his team, and they really spoke for the Mwananchi, and they were asking hard questions on this latest spike of fuel prices. So you cannot say that Parliament is silent. The Parliament is playing its oversight role on the executive. And when you say that the president is all over the world and there's nothing to show for it, Ndegwa, you cannot feign ignorance, because I know you are not an ignorant person. But do not mislead Kenyans, because you know in the latest tour that the president is in America, he has signed a deal of $8.7 billion about our transport, our urban transport in Nairobi, that is going to solve the traffic jam issue and make the urban transport more effective, saving time, saving fuel, and all that is going to impact directly to the economy. So that is huge, and that needs to be applauded. And when the president is a president for all of us, he's not a Karen Nyamu president, he's not a Kenya Kwanza president, he's your president, Ndegwa. And when he signs some of these deals, it's time to say bravo, even as you criticize.
I have the capacity to accept whether or not that is a position.
What?
Yeah.
What position?
What are you challenging from
the
a state?
position that he has made. You see, we're in a democracy. In a democracy, you make your choices. Yes, he's the president of Kenya, but he may not be my president.
Okay.
I may not believe in him.
That was not necessarily a discussion. What about this issue of the fact, okay, away from Parliament, or let's start with the Houses of Parliament. The fact of the matter is that right now you appear to be under the control of the executive, that so far no single government policy or bill has been challenged in any House of Parliament, and and we've heard your colleagues say that whatever comes from government should pass without removal of any full stop or comma. Surely, not everything that comes from the government anytime is always 100% good for Mwananchi, and that's why we have the Houses of Parliament. For example, the latest proposal by Treasury, it has a raft of new taxation measures that over and above the finance bill that already hiked some taxes. Now this proposes even more. And are Kenyans wrong to assume that Parliament will simply pass those taxation measures without any scrutiny, without even challenging any statement there?
In Ndimuli, when we were campaigning, when the president was campaigning, and I was with him on the ground, around the country. He made promises to Kenyans. There are commitments that he made. And he wants to live up to his word. How does he fund these projects if not through taxations and other ways that he's advised by his team, because he has an economic team that sits in State House to advise him. So we were there, we committed with him, we agreed, we echoed him. So it's not time to abandon him when he's about to implement some of these promises that he made. Number two, all these government bills in the Muli that you see, we don't find them just in the House. Mm-hmm. The president calls us, the president and the deputy president calls us to State House. We have PGs, especially those who agree with him. That is the Kenya Kwanza side. Mm-hmm. We have had numerous PGs with the president when he wanted to implement the tax, mm-hmm. the housing levy. He called us, he explained to us, the PS for housing was there, his team was there, his economic team was there. Every time he wants to introduce something, a new law to the floor of Senate, for example, he calls both houses, he breaks it down for us with his team. We question him, we disagree.
And questions have actually been raised on that issue of having parliamentary group meetings at State House, as if Parliament was subordinate to the executive. But even away from that, the president's economic advisor, because I want to challenge one thing you said about the campaign trail. The president's economic advisor, David Ndegwa, he was challenged on the same on Twitter and was asked, but this administration made so many promises on the campaign trail and equipped and asked, and you believed them?
Yes, he did.
Because the politician is asked, you believed them. What would you say to that?
You see, we're not here to discuss David.
No, it is a statement that was made by a public a state officer,
no, we're not,
okay.
whom we are paying and who is accountable to us.
If
then you don't have the capacity, then ask me the question, I'll answer.
I'll give you the opportunity to answer.
You will have to call David D, mm-hmm. because sometimes, even as public servants, mm-hmm. we are wayward. Mm-hmm. We make statements that do not represent the position of the government.
No.
All the time. Yeah, and I don't want to name names.
But I'll give you an opportunity just.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we conduct ourselves in a manner that is not even.
So you do not agree with whatever David Ndegwa said?
Of course I do not agree with what, because I know the kind of a man the president is. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has a history of delivering to what and committing mm-hmm. to what he promises, right from when he was a CS. Mm-hmm. So I do not agree, and you can call him, you can call David Ndegwa mm-hmm. and question him. Okay. Because those are his personal remarks.
Idimuli, yes. You know, the unfortunate thing is that this individual of Kenya Kwanza do not want to appreciate and accept the fact that this is a government that was premised and constituted on the ground of deceit. Mm-hmm. Deceit and obtaining from the Kenyan people by false pretense. Obtaining by false pretense in the sense that they're able to do what they are not even able to do. Mm-hmm. For example, let me just, even before I come to the question of D, I address one thing, that even this fuel cost and the removal of the subsidies was not William Ruto's decision. It was coerced and put down his throat by the IMF and the World Bank. Because, and of course, you must also read the question of the hiking of the fuel prices with the recent congamano of the summit that was here, the question of going away from the fossil fuels to the question of now appreciating the electric bodabodas and the electric vehicles that were launched the other day. Somebody is trying to create the market for all those products. And therefore, because of that particular economic strategy of the persons who have taken captive of this government, and I say persons who have taken captive of this government deliberately, because government has been taken captive by IMF. And of course, you know where the IMF is also all coming from. So in the sense that Kenya want to put up an argument that we want to mitigate on our carbon credit, so they must slow down the usage of the fossil fuels by hiking the prices, so then they can, of course, be able to credit it. But that is why Kenyans are suffering. Kenyans are suffering because of bad policies that are being implemented by this government, not because the prices have actually changed in the global markets. Now, when it comes to the question of what was done by David Ndegwa and the tweet that he did, we must call him to order. And he's just speaking the truth. he is representing what we Kenyans already know, that we could not believe these individuals from ab initio, that they do not even have the capacity to implement. For example, in the Muli, if I might be a bit more practical, agonizing, they have been gnashing their teeth, they have been in trenches, and they're in trenches even up now, and there's nothing that has happened. Remember, this is a government that was supposed to be constituted by the hustler. Hii ni serikali itaundwa na mama mboga. Hii ni serikali itaundwa na mtu wa bodaboda. Hii ni serikali ambayo itaundwa na mtu wa mkokoteni. Where are all those guys? It's a government that was created on the principle of deceit and forceful obtaining from the people of Kenya. Okay. They have no capacity to deliver, and they're not going to deliver anything. If they had the ability to deliver, at least we should be seeing some indications.
Okay.
But now,
it is.
Let me just finish. You've been told that the president was in America and he got some finances for building the roads, the farms, expanding Nairobi. That person who goes to America and believes that his problem can only be solved by the Americans is one of the problems that Africa want to deal with. Because Africa wants to rise up. And we want to rise up and get ourselves out of the armpits of these individuals who are perpetuating the modern colonization. Mm-hmm. Because we have to create ourselves and bring ourselves to the level where we feel that we are sufficient enough to be completely independent. But that's not what is happening. Look at what he did when he went to America. In exchange of whatever we are being told that was given to him to come and expand the roads in Nairobi, he gave out 1,000 police officers to go to Haiti. Mm-hmm. So it is a horse trading. Okay. And as he gives these 1,000 police officers, his own police officers are being killed in Kayole. Mm-hmm. You remember he lost a police officer in Kayole. Courtesy of thugs. Okay. So we are not even able to address the challenges that we have. For example, look at the police ratio to citizen. Currently, we stand at about 1:700. One police officer is manning 700 citizens. The UN ratio should be 1:450 police officers. Then you have the courtesy and the generosity to volunteer and offer your officers to go and deal with Haiti. Why? Because he wants to be in the good books of the Americans. Mm-hmm. Okay. So those policies are actually affecting us.
Okay, Senator, go ahead.
Kenya is part of an international community.
Yes, but you don't give people food when you don't have food in your house.
We cannot aspire to self-sufficiency. It is falsehood, because even the Americans are not self-sufficient. And so we do not have that technology, for example, of those buses, BRT buses. So if we partner with America and they come and give us that technology and we benefit from it.
At what cost?
At the cost of development.
How about our sovereignty? It's not about development. It's about also the guarding of our sovereignty.
Allow her to prosecute this on the react.
Do we pretend to be self-sufficient in the name of sovereignty?
Mm-hmm.
That is ignorance.
Sovereignty comes
and
first.
That is, where has our sovereignty been affected?
It has been ripped.
By us having a deal with America to come and supply us the buses.
Okay. Learned friends, let's take this conversation forward. Senator, you look at the headlines today and they speak a lot about what's happening in government. And this could be seen as a direct result of the same conversation we're having. Mm-hmm. The cost of living, and this is how this has brought about what could be seen as cracks in government. One CS speaking at cross purposes with the Deputy President, David D saying one thing, Moses Kuria saying something else. The Deputy President tries to call them to order. Someone responds on Twitter or this or the other. On the Daily Nation, they call it trouble in paradise. On the Standard, they call it no longer at ease. Are these headlines inaccurate?
We know that the media would like to portray a certain picture and they would like to sell a certain narrative. But to me, these are normal things when you're running a government. Mm-hmm. It's like running a family. You're not always in agreement. Mm-hmm. You cannot say we are always on the same page. So this is normal. We know who our leaders are. His Excellency President Ruto, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. And if those two are in agreement and reading from the same page, and there's an issue of one, I don't want to use the word errant, or one individual or, well...
Do you disagree with what the trade CS said in his response to Kenyans about the cost of living?
You know, we know MK. We know his character. So I am not surprised. That's how he chose to handle it. And that's how he chose to express it. But what was his point? Mm-hmm. He probably got frustrated at some point and talked in a manner that he was not supposed to as a public servant. But did you get his point? What was he trying to say? And the deputy president, of course, disappointed by the manner in which he's addressing what the deputy president calls his boss, the people who elected him, he made his statement on that. But it is, to me, it's neither here nor there. It happens. Even in the House of Senate, we have disagreements here and there. And this, it's nothing. It's inconsequential to me. Yes, it is. What we should be focusing on more is what is this government achieving so far. Well, and we have made strides in several areas. Our
concern is when we look at the front pages of the dailies today, all you're seeing is government. We're not seeing any opposing parties here. And when government is no longer in agreement on issues that affect Mwananchi, then we should be concerned, Senator.
What is the disagreement?
Well,
can you narrow it down to...
Some people are even calling for a reshuffle in the cabinet.
But what is the disagreement? To what extent does this disagreement affect the services or the Mwananchi?
When the CS in charge of trade and investment asks Kenyans to go to Ruiru or to go Chimba Kisima, oil, definitely.
I do not agree. I said that he conducted himself in a manner that was not expected even by his boss, the deputy president. Mm-hmm. I have said it. Okay. So I am not in support of how he handled it, because there's a way Mwananchi is supposed to be broken down to some of this information. Some people do not know what is going on. They just know prices have hiked for fuel. They don't know the factors behind it. And so it is intelligent that it is prudent to address it in a respectful way. So you cannot call that now a government position or now take advantage to splash headlines like that.
No.
Let us talk about the improved maize harvest.
From
32 million bags to 44 million bags this year.
Yet we cannot ignore this because
we
it's
cannot
also
ignore that, because even
that
maize you're talking about, we still be colored by the system that is not able to respond.
It is not true. Mm-hmm.
Let me respond by saying that Moses Kuria's statement.
Okay, we'll come back.
Moses Kuria's statement was irresponsible.
From 7,000 to 2,500.
Moses Kuria's
and the 55,000 teachers that have been employed since January.
Moses Kuria's statement was irresponsible. It is conduct unbecoming for a state officer. He does not deserve and is not fit to continue holding that particular office. He has demonstrated disrespect for the people and disrespect for the Constitution. He has disrespected our sovereignty. So Moses Kuria is a person who must be informed to clearly read the Constitution to which he swore to defend.
You're just echoing,
if he does
echoing the deputy president.
No, I never quote him. I never quote that man.
You have not quoted him, but
I never quote the former member of parliament for Madeira.
You don't have to
I don't have any reference for him.
But you're echoing his sentiments.
No, he has never quoted that former member of parliament for Madeira has never quoted the Constitution. I am quoting the Constitution, Article 473. And I'm telling Moses Kuria, and I actually invite him for a lecture on this particular thing, and I'll lecture him on what is expected of him as per the Constitution and as per the how do you call it? The act that deals, the Leadership and Integrity Act. It says that a public officer must breathe confidence and respect to the office that he's holding. He must give confidence to the people that he is leading. So when you go and talk recklessly, like you're talking in the market, and you tell people that go and sink your own wells. I actually tweeted and invited him to come and sink one in my compound because I've discovered oil there. So it is a quite irresponsible government, and it shows you the kind of the exchanges that we're having. That former member of parliament that you're now former member of parliament for Madeira, that you're quoting that is giving guidance to Moses Kuria, is as bad as Moses Kuria. The other day he told us that this country is a company. The other day one day he said that a tiger in Kikuyu is the same as a leopard. They do not put in their faculties to thinking before they speak. Their tongue runs fast. than their mind and their brain. So what we are simply saying is, Kenyans are not out of the woods. Kenyans are frustrated. This is not the government they expected and they voted for. Kenyans are not inspired. They have lost hope, and you can see the hope that is being demonstrated by the papers, that 7 million people, 700,000 people, 7,000 people can turn up for 350 jobs.
Okay.
So to me, we have a long way to go, and we must begin this debate, Idimuli.
Okay.
What is democracy, and how can democracy be reflected? For example, and I want to go global because I've told you that Africa is rising up, and we're having a resonance for the African state. And we must be able to do and deal with the individuals who are alleged to be more democratic, and the people who are alleged to be the epitome of democracy. Democracy in Africa is not working, because democracy in Africa is giving us the people that the Americans and the British and the French want, not the people that not the individuals that the people want.
Yeah,
so
the people vote.
Yeah, they vote, but the machine votes faster than the people do. And the machines is the Americans,
okay,
is the British.
What solution would you suggest to us away from democracy, if at all democracy is not working?
I'll give you an example in what is happening in Niger, and also in Gabon, and also in Burkina Faso, and also in Mali, and the Benin Republic.
Military coup.
What has happened? It's not a military coup. It is a constitution and installation of government. Why? Because we say that government is by the people, for the people, and by the people. Then they told us that the means of demonstrating and manifesting democracy is through periodic elections and term limits. Let me take, for example, what happened in Gabon. In Gabon, Ali Bongo was elected twice. He changed the constitution under the instigation of the French people, and then he ran for the third term. What did the president in France say? The French president said that is democracy. Ali Bongo is a democratically elected individual. Yet they told us that the tenets of democracy is term limits for a presidential term, is a presidential term limit. Then you ask yourself, why then was it so convenient for the French to uphold the election as a democratic election, which has gone beyond the term limits?
Okay.
So the people decided to take power in their hands. And then the people have accepted this government. How do you know or determine whether a government is legitimate? If that government has a widespread acceptance.
Okay.
All these governments, they have widespread acceptance, and then we are simply saying that we cannot just take elections as a means of establishing government, elections as a means of determining and manifesting democracy.
Okay.
We must think outside the box.
It's a very good argument, Wakili, and probably a discussion for another day.
Yes.
I do agree with you. That's a very interesting proposition for that kind of discussion. But back to the discussions we're having today, and the conduct of senior members of cabinet. Next week on Tuesday will be the 27th of September. It marks exactly 1 year since the president named his cabinet. So by Tuesday, we'll be marking exactly 1 year since all these cabinet secretaries were named. Do you think it is time for cabinet reshuffle? Do you think that because the president has been away and is set to come back before the end of the week, that the time is ripe for him to call to order all these, we may call errant people in his cabinet and do a reshuffle?
That is the prerogative of the president. I choose to focus on the wins, the successes of the Kenya Kwanza government, and which are, as the president promised, that he's going to bridge the gap of teacher to student in schools. We have seen him systemically.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. As a member of Kenya Kwanza, of UDA, and a member of Kenya Kwanza, a senator under the Kenya Kwanza wing, are you satisfied with the performance of this cabinet as it is? And if you're satisfied, to what extent? If you may rate it between 1 to 100, your satisfaction.
The first year of a cabinet, I would be overambitious or unrealistic to expect much from a cabinet, because this is when they have been laying their plan. This is where they have been laying their strategy, changing strategy here and there. And we are about to see, we have seen some rolling out, but we are about to see major rollouts in the next year. So it would be premature to judge the cabinet by their performance.
Okay. And I'm informed there's some technical issue with your microphone, so as we sort it out.
Yes.
On the same issues of the cabinet.
Yeah.
It is, someone will come to sort it out, don't worry. On this issue of the cabinet, 1 year on,
yes,
because last week we were looking at the president's 1 year in office. The cabinet came a few days later,
yes.
I think 2 weeks later. Do you think time is ripe for a cabinet reshuffle? Do you think that would remedy the kind of issues we are looking at right now? The issues have been so many. Do you think a cabinet reshuffle,
a cabinet reshuffle
could be part of the solution?
Will not fully address this issue if you do not instill discipline in government. Discipline is key in government, because what is happening in all these ministries is horse trading and corruption and thuggery and spillage of public resources. So even if we change individuals and we don't change the culture that has now been introduced in government, we'll still not achieve much in the bully. So we must change individuals and bring individuals who have integrity. What is lacking in this cabinet is question of integrity. For example, look at all, perhaps the bigger portion of the cabinet who are now serving have had issues. Some of them were having rape cases, others were having murder cases, others were having corruption cases. And then you expect that these individuals will carry the dream? I think you need to tell that to the birds. They have no ability to carry this.
Which cabinet secretaries do you think should be moved from the current dockets? I'm not necessarily saying being removed from cabinet,
yes,
but being moved from the current.
I could not just say be moved from cabinet, from being changed from one docket to the other. Moses Kuria should go to Gatondo. He is not useful in this government. He has no capacity to deliver. Linturi should go to Meru. Why? He has not yet explained to us why a kg of coffee last year was selling at 150 or 120 to now selling at 50 shillings. He has not explained to the Mount Kenya people why a kg of macadamia was going for 200 last year and today it is going for 20 shillings. He has not explained those particular issues. So to me, look at a person like in the office of the public service, Mheshimiwa Aisha Jumwa. What has she done in the public service to instill discipline? Zero work. So to me, if the president is keen on delivering, he must bring people into cabinet, not on the basis of their loyalty, but on the basis of meritocracy.
Would you mention? Do you have any current cabinet secretaries that you think have done a commendable job? That you think, if at all the cabinet was to stay as it is, they should retain their positions?
You'll give me a hard task to pinpoint one whom I can say he has worked above average or exemplarily. At least we can commend someone like Minister Kindiki. He's really trying to do something. But look at what Aden Duale did when he became the Minister for Defense. The first thing, the most important thing to him was to open the Somali borders. After that, what's the consequence? The consequence is that there is influx of insecurity in Lamu. That is having a serious impact on one particular community, and that is the Kikuyu community, destined and domiciled in Lamu. Another question is, could it have been a strategy of trying to maintain the war against Al-Shabaab in those northern frontiers, and also try to maintain a healthy pocket for themselves? And that is why there was a justification to open those borders.
Okay. I think you give me an answer on that question. Kindiki performed well. If at all you were to rate
he has performed. I think that's the only guy I can commend.
If you were to rate the CSs as they are right now, who would you say has performed the best?
I think I agree with him on Kindiki. Kindiki stands out. I happen to work with him because I'm the vice chair for the National Security Committee in the Senate. So I work very closely with the Cabinet Secretary for Interior, that is Kindiki, and he has done a commendable job. He's one of the CSAs who cooperate very well with their committees. who is at par with the committee, who never misses any of our summons, no matter how busy he is. He has shown up in both Parliament and Senate before both committees, anywhere, Mombasa, Naivasha, Nairobi. He is always there and never ever postponed a meeting. Okay. And we can see what he's doing nationally. With the banditry, with the issue of Lamu, he has just opened a headquarters in Lamu in response to the current insecurity in that place. So, Kindiki,
okay,
for me.
As we wrap up this discussion,
Yes.
A lot of politics has been happening. There's a bipartisan talks happening at the Bomas of Kenya, but away from that, this one I pointed to you, there's talk of Raila Odinga giving it another stab at the presidency.
Yeah.
And it's actually in one of the cartoons, I think, on the Daily Nation, page 17. Raila with his cards, yes, page 17, Baba the Sixth. This definitely has a potential of causing some ripples within the Azimio, because even as we talk about cracks within the Kenya Kwanza coalition, this discussion within the Azimio, how is it going within the Azimio coalition?
As per now, we are focused on shaping the narrative on a free and fair elections. These are distracting strategy from where we are. We have already given our position as Azimio that there shall be no need for us to go for elections if we know that we shall go to an election and it ends up as to what we had last year. So the question of Baba the Sixth is not even one of the issues that is actually troubling us. What is troubling us is how will Kenyans feed? How can Kenyans continue to buy fuel at 200 shillings? How can Kenyans continue to have their kids at home because of failure to have school fees? What shall we do to bring the cost of living down? So this narrative of Baba the Sixth is not one of the issues that we have on the tables as
it is not coming from...
This is not one of what is troubling us. Okay. What is troubling us is the thematic issues that we raised in the dialogue committee. And that's what you can see today. We have said clearly that we are going to table these issues today, and we want a response so that then we are able to know how do we deal with you. Remember, there is one condition of bringing the cost of living down. There is also the question of respect for multi-party democracy, because multi-party democracy has been mutilated in this country, courtesy of the current government.
You raise the issues today?
They are there. Those are some of the issues we are raising today.
Before
at
Bomas.
At Bomas, we want to know, because that is the litmus test for the commitment with which...
If it goes your way, if the Bomas talks go your way, and, because one of those issues being canvassed there has to do with electoral reforms and the conduct of general elections.
Yes.
If at all everything goes your way, Baba the Sixth, is it a prospect?
Well, let me tell you something, Indimuli. The reason why we are where we are is because we want to capture power. We want to capture power by force, by fire. We want to capture power through the conventional means that is dictated by the Constitution. We do not want to capture power in any extra constitutional means. So, if then he will be one of the best strikers, and we still have best strikers in that particular coalition, then the coalition will sit down and make a determination. But as per this one, is a distracting strategy, as we are focused on Bomas, and we are focused on the question of a free, fair election. And by the way, in the movie, as I finish up on that,
an additional question on the same.
Yes.
Because we're seeing also leaders from Azimio, from within the Mount Kenya area, caucusing around something they call Kamwene.
Yes, Kamwene.
Yes, and those are the issues we're asking. Baba the Sixth on one side.
Can I tell you something about the
Kamwene?
Kamwene means Niketu, the in yetu. Do you know why the unelected leaders in Mount Kenya region are coalescing around the Kamwene gospel? It's because we have realized that the individuals that we elected into parliament, led by Mheshimiwa Karen Nyamu and the rest, they have abandoned the people. They are now dining and wining with the government. They are no longer representing the plight of the people. You have just heard me highlighting the question of the coffee, and the question of the macadamia, and the question of rice in Mwea, the question of water for irrigation in Mwea. The question of how 1.5 billion that was supposed to irrigate, to put water for irrigations in Mount Kenya region was diverted to some other region, and hence bringing some serious chaos in, within the Ministry of Water, and a tussle between the minister and the PS. Those are the issues that we are raising. So Kamwene is coming up to complement what the elected leaders have abandoned and neglected. And we are having that conversation because the Kamwene is the one that is going to push the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling policy. Remember when Kinyakare and Nyamu went to Nyeri, when they had their feast of rice and nyama, they forgot about the whole concept of what ails us as Mount Kenya region. Okay. They were told...
And those conversations cannot be had at the national level with the Azimio.
Who is going to propel them? Okay. And Karen Nyamu, they have been held captive. The Karen Nyamus of this world.
Let's allow Karen Nyamu to respond, Senator.
It's not true what my colleague in the law practice is trying to allege here. We know of the coffee reforms that His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua is championing across the Mount Kenya region.
Which reforms?
We know about the cartels that have held hostage the coffee trade in Kenya. They are the brokers, they are the distributors, they are the buyers, and we are trying to dismantle this chain that they have created so that the farmer is selling directly.
Let me tell you,
and having maximum benefits.
You'll get an opportunity.
So you cannot claim that we went and had rice and we forgot about this. We have seen these forums that involve legislators in the Mount Kenya region and led by His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. And these coffee traders, billionaires, have held this trade hostage.
Is that why the president said he's going to take over that?
I don't think Karen Nyamu is a coffee farmer.
No, I don't have to be a coffee farmer.
But I'm well versed with coffee farming because I'm a farmer.
I did not interfere.
I'm one of those farmers who have actually been injured by this.
You will get an opportunity.
I was very silent when you were speaking, so please accord me the same respect. So there are a lot of reforms being done in the farming, particularly in the Mount Kenya region, because it's a major bread basket in this country. And on Baba the Sixth, you asked a political question that Ndegwa is trying to skirt around. It's a political question. It is not an economic one. It is not what he's trying to skirt with. Baba is the best bet for Azimio. Let's face it. It doesn't matter who is aggrieved by that fact. It doesn't matter Kamwene disagrees or whatever. Baba is the best bet they have in Azimio. Martha Karua will not cut it. I don't think Alonzo can cut it, or whoever else who stand it.
Why don't you think that the rest stand an opportunity?
Because there's nobody who can mobilize Kenya or excite the Kenyan voter like Baba can. Let's face it. And there's nobody who will make another candidate go around the country with the kind of vigor we did, if not Baba.
Okay. I think...
let me tell you something about what Mheshimiwa Karen Nyamu does not understand. And she needs to go and ask that question in Parliament. When last year, our coffee was sold in the same system of the so-called alleged cartels or the cartels. Whoever bought our coffee was in the same line of marketing, mailing, storage, and all that. But with all those so-called cartels, we were paid 120 shillings per kg. Today, with the concept of fighting against cartels, we have been paid 60 shillings per kg. The prices have reduced by half. Let me finish, Karen.
A lot of factors.
Let me finish, Karen. So you ask yourself, and I told you that Mwananchi does not care whether the cat is black or white. He cares about the cat catches the mice. So you ask yourself, if the cartels were able to give us 120, and that is what the farmer wants, and the other guys are giving us 60 shillings, you ask yourself, if it is working, why fix it? That's the fundamental question. Okay. Number two, when the so-called, when the former member of parliament for Madeira went to Colombia, he did not go to market our coffee. He went to market the tigers. He has not told us, even yesterday when he had the meeting, he never told us how he marketed our coffee. He said he went there to market tourism, and he's tried to substantiate how a tiger, is also a leopard. So You know, it is easier for these individuals to keep on talking. They have
because
been
of time,
winning
what
our
is it?
hearts by this sweet talking.
Yes.
They have been winning the hustlers' hearts by sweet talking. But
Allow me-
too much talking with zero work.
Allow me to highlight.
As
allow
you give
me-
your remarks, and towards the tail end of your remarks, you can give your final thoughts as well. You can respond to what he's saying and then give your final thoughts.
Ndegwa is just here to carry a narrative and to give false information out there, because that's what...
Didn't he market the tigers?
Yes, he did. He did market the
So he
tourism.
never told us about the coffee. He was going there for the coffee conference, not to market the
Yes,
tigers.
he did.
Let's allow the senator to...
He did extensively market the Kenyan coffee.
He
But
marketed
allow
the
me-
tigers, not the Kenyan coffee.
Allow me to highlight the successes and the wins of this government, because if we sit here to listen to him, we might think that...
But if it is working, why
this-
fix it?
Because we're making our final remarks, let's allow her uninterrupted.
Yes,
then
tell
you'll
her
get your
to answer me
opportunity
because
uninterrupted.
she's in a more
I think
privileged
she has
Let me
already
answer
done
you.
that. I
Let
think
me
she has
answer
already
you.
If coffee was working last week,
Let me answer you.
why fix it now?
Okay.
If it was
Senator,
working last
Let
year,
me
why
ask-
fix
let
it?
me answer you. The
How do you
reforms-
solve a problem? How do you come to
Can I
the
answer
question
you?
is
when you
clear.
cannot?
You have
question
asked
is
me
clear.
the question. You have the reforms that the deputy president and his team are seeking.
They have brought us 60 shillings.
They are not in effect. They are not in effect. They are looking for the solution.
So why
they are
demolish
not in
the
effect.
house that you are living before you build a new one?
Okay.
The
Because of
60
time.
shillings you're talking about is by the cartels, because they have not. It's not in effect.
But the
They
cartels
have
give
not-
us 120.
They are the ones.
You are
the same
giving
ones
us 60.
60. They're the same ones giving 60 because
No,
no changes have been effected.
I think we'll
anyway.
set aside, we'll need to set aside
Anyway.
a forum for debating coffee issues
Okay.
around Mount Kenya.
Right.
Yes.
But for now, I guess because of time,
I want to
can
highlight the successes of
yes,
the Kenya
in about 2 minutes or so.
of the Kenya Kwanza government. The Hustler Fund. we did phase one. You laugh all you want.
Well, you need to listen to yourself.
Okay.
We
Final
did
comment.
phase one,
Uninterrupted, yes.
which was an individual loan between 500 shillings and 50,000. It was a huge success. The president has rolled out phase two that has a cap of 1 million. Is it even 100 million for groups? He will not understand because he does not know the value.
I don't
of,
understand because it does not make sense.
You do not understand the
The
value.
rules on this part is that you just stay.
You do not understand the value of 2,000 shillings in the phone of a hustler. That is not for you. You're not the target market for Hustler Fund. But those people,
How do you remove me from that armpit?
those people who are not going to Shylocks anymore, they're not using expensive Fuliza anymore. They are accessing the Hustler Fund at a very low interest rate. Really appreciate that. The Kenya government has a target of employing 116,000 teachers across the country to bridge the gap for student per teacher student ratio. We have seen the government in 2 phases since January employ 55,000 teachers. This is putting your mouth where your money where your mouth is. Subsidizing production, which we have seen the government reduce the price of fertilizer from 7,000 shillings, phase one, to up to 3,500 shillings, and the latest phase, which was rolled out in August, to 2,500 shillings. And how they're doing it, farmers are registering, cutting the broker or any corruption. They're registering directly, and 5 million farmers have registered for this program. And they're using the warehouse receipt system, whereby your fertilizer that is allocated to you is in the warehouse and no middlemen whatsoever. And in effect, what that is going to do, and we cannot talk about the cost of living if we are not talking about food production. In effect, for example, in one of our biggest farmed crops, which is maize, from the last year long rains, which we've harvested 32 million bags of maize, we are now projected to harvest, and the harvest is ongoing, and we have seen it, to 44 million bags. A huge difference, and it will affect the price of unga greatly. The government has also partnered with county governments to make sure that farmers are accessing tractors and all these production tools at an affordable price, and they have 50 points of distribution of all these fertilizers on the ground at the village levels. They have also subsidized and are giving grants of dryers of maize, because one of our greatest impediment for millers buying the Kenyan maize is the moisture level. So this will reduce the losses for farmers when they have dryers on the ground. We also have the digitalizing of government services, which puts the service right on your phone. You don't have to incur any transport costs and all that. And many other...
Final comment, or that's it?
You see,
my final comment,
30 seconds.
My final comment, I always say, you look at the intent of a leader, you look at the intentions of a government. Are the intentions of our president in the right place? Has he demonstrated goodwill? Largely so. We have political goodwill left, right, and center in every sector. The president he makes decisions on his feet, and he has cut out bureaucracy. He's doing things outside the box.
Okay.
And that's all we need to appreciate, that this guy is leading the country in the right direction.
Okay.
He's not all about rhetoric. He is an action-based leader. Okay. So far, that's all you can see.
Okay.
And
thank you, Senator.
I am very sure.
Finally, your final.
I am very sure the advice I am going to give Mheshimiwa Karen is unsolicited. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I have cautioned myself that she needs to stand on her feet and have her own political backbone. Yes, the praise and worship she is giving to these messes will not add any value to come 2027, because that person who gave you this appointment may not be interested. May not be interested in your services next time. So have some spine, have some political spine. That is the political advice I would give you. And I know it's unsolicited, you can take it or leave it. But now the question of the hustlers funds, I don't even want to debate it. I don't understand it because it's hogwash. Number two, the 55,000 teachers we are being told were employed. These guys have not been employed. They are internships. They are interns. They are earning a stipend of 17,000. Out of that stipend, they are being taxed pay as you earn, NSSF.
What do you have?
They are also being taxed the housing levy. Then you ask yourself, in which economy and in which government and in which taxation regimes do you tax stipends? So that girl, that boy is taking home 7,000 shillings, where he has to eat from and also pay for his rent. You see, that is now the so-called the employment of the teachers that we have been told. Now, also remember, the question of the fertilizer subsidy. One, this is not the first time it is happening in the Republic of Kenya. Number two, these fertilizers were given to us by the Russian government. The Russian government brought 34,000 tons of fertilizer. So the question is, when the farmer is in Kirinyaga is supposed to be getting this fertilizer for free, is being told pay 2,500. Okay. Finally, the tractors were being told from Belarus. The tractors were being told. First of all, that issue of the tractor is also bringing some serious foreign policy issues and some stifles in the foreign arena. We are done.
Thank you,
so all what I can simply say is, this government again scores a D minus in its performance. The unfortunate thing is that we do not have credible and concrete individuals in the name of the members of parliament, be it in the Senate or in the National Assembly, who can clearly stand to their feet and tell these individuals you are wrong. Okay. The king is naked. The government is naked. His guys, led by the Moses couriers of this world, are naked.
Okay, thank you so much.